What should be the role of a manager in the hiring and selection of new employees? I'll explain that in this video. Hello, I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimist Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. Managers are responsible for the performance of people in their department and ultimately for the overall results generated by the department. So it's important that you have the right person in each position in order to achieve those performance objectives or criteria. Now, each organization, of course, is different depending on the structure and the size. But what I drew up here, let's go back to my previous page, is a typical structure, organizational hierarchy of a typical organization. So you have the CEO, then you have directors or VPs, you have managers, and then you have the employees or team members. Now, of course, if it's a very large organization, you'd have more of everybody and more managers reporting to the directors and so forth. And you would also probably have a VP of HR and maybe a manager of recruiting. So you need to know what your authority is or what part you play in the hiring process. Now, if it's a structured organization, this may already be clear. If it's a small company, maybe you don't even have directors, maybe managers report directly to the CEO. So of course, you need to be involved to a high degree in the selection of employees. Now, I think every manager should be highly involved in the selection of employees. So let's go through the process and talk a little bit about what your role, if you're a manager, should be in that process. So the first thing you want to do is write a job description. Some companies will just post the job description as the job posting, but I don't think that's necessary because, especially in today's world, which is the second item, you're marketing the job. You need to write a job posting that's kind of like a marketing, an advertisement that you're going to post on job boards. But you still need the job description because this is a vital tool, and you could watch my videos about, writing a job description. I have a whole guide for that. And it's a tool to use not only for hiring, but also throughout the selection process and even for coaching employees. You could even use it for doing a performance review. If you don't have an established process, it always goes back to what's required in the job, and this should be updated regularly. But that's the first step. Then based on that, you write a shorter job posting, which is really a marketing piece. Now, maybe you're not great at writing, and this goes back to my previous video, which was the 3 tips for new managers, and the second tip was know your strengths and weaknesses relative to the role that you need to perform. So if you need to do all this, if you don't have an HR person or somebody else doing it, then you need to write the job post, and if you're not good at it, you need to seek out assistance. Obviously, you can go online. There's lots of articles. I have some videos and articles about writing a job post. You could check that out. I'll put a link in the description of the video. But that's really an important step. Then part of that is posting the job. Now, one thing I want to mention, which maybe should be 2A or 2B, is to use your network when marketing your job. Don't just post it, but use your team members, promote it to your colleagues, promote it to your contacts in your field. It could be suppliers or whatever. Let them know that you're hiring. If you go on LinkedIn, often there's a label, you can put a label. You see that probably, we're hiring. You could then post the job there, or a link to it. So you want to use your network. Don't just rely on job boards. Warm market is really important. Number 3, once you start getting in resumes, you want to qualify those resumes, meaning do they have the skills? Some job sites like Indeed have a feature which is free. You could add a skill test. You could also use attitude testing. I like to use the Step 1 survey, which I provide as a product, a service to my clients, because it really helps you to see someone's attitude, their work ethic, their integrity. And these are all important things that I look for to differentiate people. Once you have your shortlisted resume, you want to go into interviews. This could be done virtually or in person. More and more, companies are fast tracking interviews and doing it in online. It works really well. But when you get further into the hiring process, you probably want to bring the person in and have them physically in front of you, and you can exchange. You get a better feel for the person when they're face-to-face, actual in person. Then you want to test. This is my recommendations, what I do, test for job fit. I use the PXT Select psychometric assessment. I have a lot of videos on that. You could check those out as well. Now this could be before the interview process, or once you qualify, if you want to fast track it, but it could also be after, depending, because it is much more expensive than doing just these other tests. So you have to consider that as well. And then this helps you differentiate how people fit for the role based on a performance model. So it's a matching their thinking style, behavioral traits, and occupational interests to a model for the job. And that could be related to the job description from our library. And then you go to final interviews, and then you make your selection, and the final step is orientation. So what is the role of the manager in this? I think it should be every step of the way. You want to make sure your job description is up to date. You want to be involved to some degree, or be writing the job posting, get support if you need it. You want to go through the resumes, unless you have an assistant or somebody that you could train on that, or somebody else in the organization that's skilled at that. But you still have to go through the shortlisted ones. You want to do the interviews. Maybe there is somebody that can do the initial interviews, but you definitely want to meet the person. And then the testing, depending on your organization and what budget you have for that. Of course, the final interview at least is extremely important. So you're giving your input. A lot of times now, the companies are hiring using a team of people. So you want to make sure you're part of that team to make the final decision. And then, of course, you have a big role to play in orientation. There's two parts to the orientation. There's the cultural orientation with the general policies of the company, and then there's the specific to the job itself, which the manager needs to be involved directly with the new team member. So Every manager has a role to play in the hiring process. It's really important that you pick the right person for the job, because it's going to reflect on your performance as a manager. I hope you find this useful. Check out some of the other videos that I mentioned. There's a playlist on hiring and selection. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.